Kevin, talk about obviously the addition of these two grad transfers. This is huge. Obviously, you look at Vance Jackson, what he brings, versatility, 6'9" forward out of New Mexico, Pasadena, California native. Let's start with Vance and what he brings. I think you mentioned to me earlier he's got guard-like skills.
Yeah, he's going to stretch the floor. And what has Arkansas been missing at that 3-4 spot? When you look back over the last few years, are forwards that can shoot a little bit and consistently. And not only can Vance shoot the ball, but he can put it on the deck and drive. He's got guard skills beyond just face-up range, so he can create a little bit off the bounce. I like his rebounding numbers when he was at New Mexico. And you got to like 6'9". I mean, we got just remember Arkansas last year rolled with a 6'6" center and Adriel Bailey, the senior, and then you had a couple of 6'8" forwards. So Vance Jackson already has a little bit of a size and height advantage. We're talking about a senior, so here's a guy that's not coming in with freshman body. He's coming in grown man, and so I think that's going to help Arkansas as Eric Musselman looks to year two.
I think he hit 53s this season, Kevin. So the fact that he can step out like that.
Right. I mean, you got to, again, Adriel Bailey kind of surprised us a little bit. He hit some threes. His percentage wasn't bad, but he wasn't really a guy you looked to stretch the floor. And he really wasn't looking for that shot as part of the offense. I think with Vance Jackson, we're going to see more pick and pop and pick and roll with the guards. We didn't see enough of that because Arkansas's forwards, again, really weren't guys that could shoot the basketball away from the basket. Yeah, they're playing in pick and roll and pick and pop. We didn't see as much of that with the big guys this year. You really saw a lot of two-guard action up top, whether it was Mason Jones and Isaiah Joe. When Isaiah was hurt, you saw a lot of Jalen Harris or maybe even Jimmy Witt. But now you're going to see a guy like Jackson, a big, bringing bigs away from the basket playing in those scenarios. So it's going to be a different look and a welcome look for Eric Musselman because he's going to have more versatility in that lineup.
Yeah, Jackson averaged 11 points, 5 boards this past season. In fact, he played alongside a guy that really has had an interesting journey. Jaquan Lyle led New Mexico in scoring, and that guy has made several collegiate stops in his career, and some irony there for me to get the opportunity to cover Vance Jackson again. I got an opportunity to cover Jaquan Lyle when he was in Evansville, Indiana, going through the ranks, and so kind of an interesting connection for me as Vance Jackson arrives at Arkansas. And again, as we mentioned, guy is very dynamic. But let's talk a little about the fact that Jalen Tate is the other grad transfer who signed today. Now, Tate is a guy who, when you look at it, he's 6'6". But the one thing that jumps out, 13.9 points per game, but his defense jumps out as well. Horizon League Tournament MVP. But he was also, Kevin, the 2020 Horizon League Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, he's a defender. 6'6", nice length. And you start thinking Jimmy Witt. You got to be careful making player comparisons, but we know Jimmy Witt had that plus elite arm length that really made him more like a 6'5", 6'6" guy. And we saw him defend all kinds of different positions on the floor because he was a stopper, versatility. And I think Tate brings that quality with him. On the offensive end, Tate's also not a three-point shooter. Now, he'll take a few. We know Jimmy only took one, but another guy that's going to slash, get to the basket. I think Tate can post smaller guards in the mid-post and catch the ball there. That free throw line extended and go to work from there. So I think when we talk about Vance Jackson being a shooter from three. We talk about Connor Vanover coming in as a shooter at 7'3". Here's a guy that positionless basketball that maybe do more damage when you space the floor, driving to the basket. The more weapons you have, the more they start to complement each other with different ways they get it done.
Devontae Davis signed in the fall, and so here's a guy from Jacksonville who is a triple-double scoring machine. But what does he bring as a 6'4" guard?
I'm sorry, say that again, Drew. It cut out.
Oh, you're all right. Let's talk about Devontae Davis. Obviously, he signed in the fall, so when you look at Devo, he's a triple-double machine. At least that's what he did at Jacksonville. But as a 6'4" guard, how would you describe him?
I describe him as having swagger and the it factor. Here's a guy, you remember great running backs when they get in the open field and they got one guy to beat, they start high-stepping and stiff-arming. Devo, end to end, has got great court awareness, and he starts to high-step as he begins to think about all of his choices because he sees everybody on the floor, defense and offensive players. He sets guys up brilliantly. He can finish on his own, and he really gets excited in the moment of a play. And so he kind of high-steps and showboats a little bit. But the point of Devo is we talked about the triple doubles. He really got stronger in his upper body as a senior, and a guy that would go and he averaged 11 rebounds a game. And I saw him go up against tough front line guys, go in there and battle and get rebounds. I think that's big Because again, Arkansas is not a good rebounding team, but they weren't in year one under Musselman. So you're going to get it anywhere you can. I think he's going to bring that. 24 points a game to go with those 11 rebounds at Jacksonville, 8 assists a game, 3 steals. And you start talking about the fact this team only lost one game in a very tough conference, the 5A Central, and made it to the state title game in 5A before that was canceled due to COVID-19 pandemic. But a guy that had a great senior season as a lead up and a launching point as a big point guard for Eric Musselman.
KK Robinson, he has said he's going to sign Monday. Let's talk about KK for a minute because this guy's had a nice journey to talk about. The fact that he's from Bryant but went to Oak Hill. What will he bring to Arkansas considering Musselman likes that positionless scheme? He's already got a lot of guards in-house, but what can KK add schematically for Arkansas?
Well, first of all, what you get with KK Robinson is a near elite defender at a young age. I've been watching since he was a freshman in high school. By the way, he won a MVP of the state title game in 3A, leading Episcopal Collegiate to its only state title as a freshman. And even at that time, he showed you special skills on the defensive end. So here's a guy, when you look at Arkansas's perimeter defense being the best in the country at defending the 3 line this year, from wire to wire, this is a really good perimeter defense. It was a defense that led a team that was top 10 in turnover margin as Arkansas had to find ways to create possessions with turnovers. They weren't a good rebounding team. Well, KK's a defender. He's a perimeter defender, and he sets a defense. And he's the kind of guy, because of the way he plays, it's inspirational. And I think other guys will have to lift their game on that end of the floor. So that's end of the floor is going to be taken care of with KK Robinson. On the offensive end, this is where he really raised the bar at Oak Hill. His three-point shooting, 43% on the season. They play a national schedule. This guy, that's elite shooting. Anytime you're over 40% at any level, it's really good. And he's a guy that can slash, get to the basket. He's explosive that way from point A to point B. And he's also worked in and really developed his mid-range game as he's able to slash in and pull up if he can't get all the way. So I think he's a guy that is going to be trustworthy early because I think he's got a maturity to his game. I've seen it again, like I said, since he was a freshman. So I really like this addition. Again, like you said, he's set to sign on Monday, the 20th.
Jalen Williams, 6'10". What's the update on his signing and when that will take place? And obviously, Arkansas Gatorade Player of the Year. You look at Jalen. One thing I watch him on tape, and he can bring that back to the basket type game that I think some of these Razorback fans are looking for.
Yeah, and he's a guy that when you really look at his skill set, there's a lot to like at 6'10", a face-up guy, can shoot the three, can pass. He's a really good passer, either facing the basket or playing back to the basket. But what I like about him is he's a volume rebounder the day he steps on the court. Here's a guy that averaged over 12 rebounds a game as a senior. But what you really look back to is last spring and summer on the prestigious Nike EYBL circuit, playing against the best of the best in the country. He was second on that circuit in rebounding at over 10 rebounds a game. That says a lot. So even though there's other things that might be question marks as he matures and takes that next step, anytime you can add a volume rebounder to a proven volume rebounder to a team that was last in the SEC on the glass, he's not only, he's a wide body, he's a space eater, but you can count on him to get on the glass. And I think that, if nothing else, that's going to be big for Arkansas.
Moses Moody, 6'5" guard, went to Montverde out of Little Rock. Moses is one of those guys that's been out there who, when you talk about headlines, his name pops up all the time.
Yeah, and a guy that he's been ranked as high as a 5-star top 20 player in the country. ESPN right now has him number 38, a high-level 4-star. I think he's still a 5-star. I don't think there are 20 players better in the 2020 class in the country than Moses Moody. And you look at the success that Mason Jones and Isaiah Joe had under Eric Musselman in year one. And this is that guy that could come in and be that next guy because he's not, size is similar, but Moses has over a 7-foot wingspan. He's got broad shoulders. He's still growing. He's young for his class too, by the way. But an efficient scorer, one of the best three-point shooters in the country coming out of high school. So here's a guy that can kind of pick up, or maybe a Mason Jones leaves off as he moves forward. We'll see what Isaiah Joe does. But if you want bookends at 6'5" again next year, you just might get it with Moses Moody teaming up with an Isaiah Joe.
All right, Kevin, great stuff, man. We're getting ready for Eric Musselman here about 4 o'clock via a teleconference. So we'll hear from Muss, who will enter his second year in charge of the Razorbacks. Appreciate you, man. And a couple of big additions here today, grad transfers for Arkansas. When you talk about Vance Jackson out of Pasadena, California, and then out of Pickerington, Ohio. Jalen Tate, really good guard out of Northern Kentucky. Kevin, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Good to be with you guys.
All right, bud.
Stay safe.